Chapter 1. The Last Fire of the Forge Masters. In the hollow heart of the Worldspine Mountains, deep beneath the roots of time-worn peaks, stood the ancient dwarven stronghold of Tar-Brumur. Hewn from obsidian-veined stone and molten iron, its vaulted halls rang once with the rhythm of hammers and the deep chants of the Forge Masters. It was here, beneath a ceiling of rune-carved granite and amidst rivers of glowing magma, that the final fire of the dwarven high forge flickered for the last time. The night was one of siege and sorrow. From the east came the tide of darkness, an army of shadow-bound elves, their eyes glowing with the cursed light of the undergloom, their blades slick with poison and hate. They poured into the outer halls like a black flood, defiling the stone with every step. The dwarves held as they always had, shield to shield, beards bloodied, eyes burning with grim resolve. But Tar-Brumur was faltering. Within the innermost sanctum, beneath the pillar of inheritance, High Forge Master Thorgrim Irongold labored over a final creation. With age-gnarled hands and a voice hoarse from centuries of chants, he poured the essence of ancient runes into the molten core of a double-bladed axe, an heirloom forged not of metal alone, but of lineage, memory, and vengeance. As his breath grew short, he placed the newborn weapon into the arms of his infant grandson. Thorgrim Irongold was born amidst the roar of battle and the thunder of collapsing stone. He did not cry, not once, as if even in his first breath he understood the weight of his bloodline. The forge fires dimmed, and Thorgrim's body turned to ash beside the dying embers. But the axe, gleaming with firelight and rune glow, remained, warm and silent. The survivors fled through the forgotten tunnels, led by the iron sentinels, carrying their kin and the future upon their backs. Behind them, the gates of Tar-Brumur sealed with a runic scream, locking away the heart of a dying civilization. Years passed in exile. The dwarves wandered, broken and hunted, dwelling in forgotten caverns and fractured memories. Yet the child Thorgrim grew, fed not just on food and water, but on the stories of his people's fall, on the tales whispered by stone and steel. The axe never left his side. He trained in silence, spoke only to the mountains and carved runes into stone with a patience that echoed eternity. When he came of age, the elders marked his brow with the ash sigil, denoting the one who would seek the lost flame. With the blessing of the remnants of Clan Deeproot, Thorgrim descended into the caverns of solitude, seeking the first trial, the forge of echoes where even thoughts become sound and regrets take form. It was there, in the dark, that he would begin the long path not of vengeance, but of rekindling. For the last fire of the Forge Masters had not died. It lived within him. And the stone remembered his name. Chapter 2. The Golden Triad. Beyond the caverns of solitude lay a realm forgotten even by the eldest of dwarves, a labyrinth of tunnels veined with quartz and memories, lit only by the dull luminescence of fungal lanterns and the flicker of unseen flame. Thorgrim passed through these silent halls as a shadow among echoes, his axe slung across his back, his heart heavy with the charge of the ash sigil. The path to the Golden Triad was not marked by maps, but by resonance. In the whispers of dripping water and the deep rumble of stone, Thorgrim heard the call of the three: the Forge Fire Sanctum, the Chamber of the Deep Echo, and the Crystal of Souls. Each place held a fragment of the essence his ancestors had forged into the foundation of dwarven might, flame, voice, and memory. The first destination was the Forge Fire Sanctum, hidden within a collapsed caldera surrounded by molten rivers. Thorgrim withstood its searing trials, traversing narrow obsidian bridges, resisting flame spirits that tested his resilience not just in body but in will. At the center, an anvil of living rock awaited. There he placed his axe and for 3 nights, infused it with the heat of inner flame, earning the fire mark. An invisible rune burned onto his soul. Next came the Chamber of the Deep Echo. Located beneath the ruins of an ancient bell forge, this place was a chasm where sound had mass and voice had consequence. Thorgrim entered in silence, knowing any stray thought could summon reflections of regret. As he walked, the echoes became forms, phantoms of fallen kin, voices of doubt, sounds of war and wailing. Each step forward was a rejection of despair. In the quietest part of the chasm, he roared a single word: his name. The walls trembled. The echo became a chorus. Lastly, he sought the Crystal of Souls, buried within the petrified heart of a worldroot tree. The path wound through tunnels overgrown with living stone and veins of silver moss. The crystal pulsed with dormant memory, requiring not brute strength but reverence. Thorgrim pressed his forehead to the stone, offering his blood. Visions flooded him, memories of the Forge Masters, their triumphs and failings, the forging of Tar-Brumur, the betrayal that led to its fall. The crystal accepted his burden and shone with his lineage. With the essence of all three awakened within him, Thorgrim returned to the Forge of Echoes. There, beneath the stone sky, he hammered once more upon his axe, each strike resonating with power not his own, but borrowed from the legacy of ages. Thus was born Dragon Scourge, a weapon not of vengeance but of destiny. And the mountains stirred in their sleep, whispering of the air returned. Chapter 3, The Curse of the Black Hammer. Among the scattered remnants of dwarven clans, there persisted a tale whispered in guilt and dread, the story of the Black Hammer. Once wielded by Thorgrim's uncle, Thorgrim the Deep-Wrought, the hammer had been a gift of honor before it became an instrument of doom. For Thorgrim had walked the shadow path, seduced by the promises of the Undergloom, and in doing so had unleashed a blight upon dwarven kin. Thorgrim's journey led him through crumbling catacombs to the vault of hollow oaths, where forgotten artifacts and disgraced names lay entombed. There, among shattered helms and rusted banners, he found the sigil of Thorgrim, split, scorched and buried beneath obsidian dust. The air was thick with ancient shame. Further signs guided him to the shrouded rift, a fractured vein beneath the mountain that breathed with unnatural life. It was there he first saw the Black Hammer again, resting on a basalt altar surrounded by petrified sentinels. Once dwarves, now statues locked in eternal agony. The weapon pulsed like a diseased heart, leaking shadows with every thrum. To claim the truth, Thorgrim had to walk alone through the trial of remnants. Hallucinations clawed at his mind. Visions of Thorgrim's betrayal, of kin slain by kin, of forges drowned in ash. But his will, tempered by fire and stone, did not bend. He stood before the Black Hammer and laid his palm upon its cursed head. The hammer screamed. The chamber cracked. Shadows surged, but they did not consume him. Instead, they recoiled as if recognizing the blood of Irongold. In that moment, Thorgrim saw it all. Thorgrim's descent, his pact with the Undergloom, and the moment he struck the gate of Tar-Brumur from within. It had been no external siege alone, it was treachery that cracked the heartstone of the dwarves. With reverence and wrath, Thorgrim shattered the Black Hammer upon the altar. The explosion of light and shadow leveled the rift, burying the remnants of shame beneath a seal of runes. The petrified dwarves crumbled to dust, finally released. But knowledge, once unearthed, cannot be buried. Now he knew the truth, that redemption would not come through strength alone, but through remembrance and reckoning. The path forward would lead into deeper dark. And the echoes of betrayal followed close behind. Chapter 4, The March of Shadows. Beneath a sky of stone and centuries of silence, Thorgrim emerged from the sealed rift bearing more than the weight of history. The truth he now carried pulsed within his every breath, as corrosive as it was vital. Thorgrim's betrayal was not just a wound in dwarven lore, it was a fracture through which shadow still seeped. And so, to mend it, Thorgrim would need more than fire and steel. He would need an army. His path led him first to the broken holdfasts, abandoned citadels carved into the inner crust of the mountains, where only whispers and dust remained. In these depths he uncovered the relics of fallen legions and sent messages inscribed in runes of iron and silver, calling forth the remnants of old clans. The Iron Sentinels came first, stoic warriors with eyes like granite and hearts tempered by solitude. Then the Pyreborn, smith priests who had kept flame alive in secretive kills. Lastly, the Dust Wardens, ghost-like rangers of the underpaths who had not seen sky or kin in 100 years. They gathered in the hollow of oaths, an amphitheater carved into the bones of the world. There, by torch and rune, Thorgrim recounted all he had seen. No boast, no plea, only the raw marrow of truth. When he spoke Thorgrim's name and held aloft the fragments of the Black Hammer, a silence fell so absolute it seemed to bend the stone. Then one by one the dwarves lowered their axes and knelt. Not in reverence but in covenant. The march began. Across labyrinthine tunnels and chasms lit by sunless flame, the war host moved like a tide of rust and fire. Thorgrim walked at its front, dragon scourge across his back, his every step striking sparks that echoed into legend. Their foes knew little at first, scattered goblin tribes, twisted trolls, and degenerate horrors of the deep. These fell quickly. But further north, the tunnels grew colder. Malformed sigils marked the walls, and a strange haze clung to the air, whispering names not spoken aloud. This was the threshold of the Undergloom. Here the march faltered. Visions crept into dreams, weapons grew heavy, and old feuds reignited like embered coals. Thorgrim stood unmoved, his voice the only clarity in a tide of doubt. With hammer in hand, he led the rites of binding, carving unity into the minds of those who would waver. Still he knew, This was but the breath before the plunge. The enemy revealed itself at the Vein of Ashes, a fortress sculpted from black crystal, built atop the corpse of a fallen worldroot. From its spires poured creatures forged in malice and spellfire, abominations clad in bone and shade, led by a dark general whose helm bore the twisted sigil of Thorgrim. No words were spoken. No parley offered. Torgrim raised Dragon Scourge. And the battle began. The March of Shadows became a war song carved into the marrow of stone, a dirge of vengeance and rebirth sung not in melody, but in steel and fire. Torgrim fought where the line buckled, stood where others fell, and though wounds marked his flesh they did not slow his stride. For he bore the fire of the Forge Masters. And the mountain still remembered its king. Chapter 5, The Song of the Hammer. The battle at the Vein of Ashes raged without pause, each clash of steel ringing like the tolling of ancestral bells. Dwarves fell but did not yield. The air trembled with runes chanted from bloodied lips, and the very stone beneath them shuddered as if stirred by ancient grief. Torgrim led the vanguard, his strikes carving arcs of molten fury through enemies both flesh and phantasm. But even legends must bleed. When the dark general emerged from the crystal gate, the sky within the cavern fractured into obsidian rain. Cloaked in spectral mail and wielding a spear forged from twisted roots, the figure strode forth like a memory made flesh. Though his face remained masked, the aura of kinship, tainted and cold, betrayed him. It was Thorgrim. Not a corpse. Not a shadow. A soul preserved by the undergloom, fed for centuries on shame and ambition. Torgrim stepped forward alone. No challenge was declared. None was needed. Dragon Scourge met spear in silence, and the cavern dimmed as if creation itself turned away. They fought across the shattered battlements, through storms of soulfire and gales of curse wind, their weapons echoing with the weight of 1,000 years. Torgrim faltered only once, when Thorgrim whispered in a voice only blood could hear, recalling the day he shattered the gate of Tar-Brumur from within. The betrayal was not merely tactical. It was deliberate, born of belief that the dwarves had grown weak. In that moment of doubt, the spear pierced Torgrim's side. But flame does not die in ash. It hides then bursts anew. With a cry not of pain but of forging, Thorgrim drove Dragon Scourge into the heart of the black crystal, channeling not just strength but legacy. Runes ignited across his arms and chest, burning with the fury of all fallen kin. The weapon shattered and with it the heart of the vein. Light flooded the cavern, not golden but clear and absolute, washing away corruption with a purity forged in suffering. Thorgrim's scream was not one of pain but release. As the fortress crumbled, the surviving dwarves bore Thorgrim to the surface, the first time his eyes beheld true sky. It was dusk. And though wounds bloomed across his body like molten flowers, he smiled. Atop a cliff of forgotten stone, he planted the haft of Dragon Scourge, now only a hilt. Around it they built a cairn, not a tomb but a beacon. The clans returned. The forges were lit anew. And the tale of Thorgrim Irongold became more than memory, it became myth. For the Forge Master's flame was not buried in stone. It walked, it fought and it sang. And its song was the hammer, echoing across the bones of the world.